Hello, welcome. My name is Lori Sanchez, and I want to welcome everybody who's joining us to our webinar series, Enhancing and Empowering Conversations for Positive Change from Be Strong Families. Our room is open now, and as you all are coming in, please go ahead and put in the chat to everyone where you're from and say hello to us. Welcome, welcome. We have different ways to engage.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, when you're ready to speak, please raise your hand and we'll unmute you and ask you to unmute yourself on your device, wherever it is you're joining us from. Feel free to type your comments in the group chat. Make sure that it says to everyone so we can all see your comments. If you don't put to everyone, then the only ones that are going to be able to see it are Sarita and myself. And we want everybody to join in the conversation. Come on in, everybody. Please be patient with us. We haven't done this in a while, so hopefully if Zoom doesn't glitch, we won't either. Okay, these are our agreements for today. Speak from your own experience. Use I statements because we don't know what everyone else is up to or what's going on in the world inside their own little heads. So just speak from your own experience and follow the golden rule. We were taught this in kindergarten. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Still a good rule. Please, no multitasking. We know that in this virtual world, it's super easy to be on several devices at once and be playing all kinds of games and doing all kinds of things. So we ask that you gift yourself this hour and join us today as we hear from our fantastic presenter today. Although if you need a minute, please take a minute. We're not going to take a break, but we'll be here. So just go ahead and take a minute to yourself and then come on back. We'll be here. Today, we want to welcome Sarita Sashington, a woman I have the great privilege to work with on a daily basis. Even though we're in two separate places across the country, we talk to each other every single day. She's going to present us today on a super special topic. It's called The Sunken Place-Overcoming Midlife Crisis in Marriage. Welcome, Sarita.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, I know. We do these all the time. And I wanted to feel special, so I had Lori introduce me. So hi, guys. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm super excited. Lori, you can drop the screen or the slide. I'm super excited to be here with you guys today, and it really is an honor and a privilege to be asked by Be Strong Families to share my book and my testimony. And I hope that in my sharing that it will encourage someone. That it will encourage marriages, because that's what I wrote it for. I'll tell you a little bit about me apart from Be Strong Families. So I am Sarita, and my husband Greg and I have been married, oh my gosh, since we were like 2. Our background has been, for 20 years, we taught married couples. We belonged to a mega church here in Chicago, and we taught married couples. We also were we ran the activities committee for this church. And so we had hundreds and hundreds of couples that will come together every year. And we were responsible for coordinating all those events, putting together, make sure that the couples had a wonderful time. We loved what we did. We coached hundreds of couples through difficult times in their marriage and difficult times in their marriages. And we held groups at our home where couples came over just to talk or to cry or whatever the case was. We had a wonderful, wonderful marriage. That's what we did in our spare time. Our marriage was a fantastic marriage. When I say fantastic, like we had 5 years, or no, we had 15 or 20 years where we literally had no arguments. I could count on one hand how many arguments we had as a couple. We talked about everything. We didn't go to bed angry. We believed in not going to bed angry at each other. And we spent time with our kids. We thoroughly enjoyed one another. Like, we loved hanging out together. We hung out like every Friday. We hung out like in the weekends, but every Friday. One of my favorite times with my husband was, we lived in an apartment, so we didn't have a washer and dryer. And every Friday, he would join me and we would wash clothes together. We would go across the street. We would get our White Castles, our chicken rings, and our all that stuff. And we would come back and we would just, enjoy one another while we washed clothes, right? Simple things like that that we did together that we really enjoyed. In addition to, going out and hanging out with friends and all that stuff. I loved us. I loved our marriage. I loved us. I had absolutely no complaints. One of the things that I noticed while we were active in our church and the place where we sat on the front row of like the second section. Hello, all. Thank you. Look, oh yeah, I'm getting to see people. So we sat on this first row of the second section. And we watched our friends. We were in a married couple Sunday school class. If your church does not have that, you need to have a married couple Sunday school class. We had a married couple Sunday school class. We had a married couples ministry that we were active in. And we had so many friends, married friends. As we sat on this front row, we noticed how many, this is just a picture, but we noticed how many of our friends started to get divorced. When they would get to 20 plus years, their marriages would be over. Could not understand for the life of me what was happening. And that became my prayer. Not really my prayer, but it became my thought. Like, Daddy, okay, let me just give a disclaimer. I right now am a guest on Be Strong Family's platform. I am a Christian. I share everything from that perspective based on my faith. Okay. I call God Daddy. So I would ask often, Daddy, what's happening with all these couples? Like, what happens when you get to 20 plus years of marriage and then all of a sudden you no longer want your marriage, or you decide to, be done with being married to this person that you created a whole life with for 20 plus years. And then be careful what you ask for, right? Okay. 2013, I noticed that there was a change in my husband. I remember so well that it was 2013 because I had gone to a laugh yoga class, and my sisters were in town, and I remember saying to them, what are we doing afterwards? So I met them downtown, and we were going for a sexy chair dance class. I have like a bunch of sisters. We were going for a sexy chair dance class. We get down there and we're having such a great time. And I had talked to my husband earlier, we were sharing our schedules. And then after the sexy dance class, I rushed home to meet my husband, to show him my sexy dance, this chair. Well, he wasn't there. To this day, he has never seen the sexy chair dance. This is 10 years later. I don't even know if I can still do the sexy dare chant, whatever, the sexy chair dance. However, I noticed at that time, that was my first inkling that something is going on. From 2013 until 2015, I want to say 16, 17, only because there was residue. We went through the most tumultuous time of our marriage ever. Ever. I had never experienced this. My husband, he spoiled me. He loved on me. He flirted with me. He always wanted to be with me. I remember him studying me to find out, what makes her happy. And we did those things together to one another because we thoroughly enjoyed each other as people. We respected each other. And then all of a sudden, that wasn't the husband that I had anymore. I noticed him dressing younger. I noticed him staying out late, like late. For us, we had a curfew for the two of us. If we went out, then we would be home before 2 a.m. because that's respectful and we're married, and we want to respect the household, respect one another. And then his days got longer and longer. So he would leave in the morning to go to work, and then I wouldn't hear from him or see him again until, oh my goodness, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, all day stints away from home. His group of friends changed. And then all of a sudden, all of his high school buddies started showing up. People that we went to high school, we're high school sweethearts. People that we went to high school with started showing up. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what is going on? But he changed. Not only those outer things, but he changed. He was abrupt and he was rude. He was mean. He was short with me. He was sensitive. I began to get blamed for everything that was wrong in our lives. Like, why did we buy this house? And why did we buy this car? And why did we buy? I didn't know what was happening. I was so blown away. Like, who is this guy? Why is he behaving like that? Where's my husband? So I started praying. And Daddy led me to look up midlife crisis. First of all, if I can just be brutally honest, I thought that midlife crisis was something that only happened to Caucasian people or on television. Why? Because that's the only place I'd ever seen it, was on television, and it was treated like a joke, or with, Caucasian folks. I never saw Black people portrayed with midlife crisis or any of those things. I thought it was, I don't know. I didn't think it was real. So I started looking. Let me just tell you, today, when I went to grab a resource off the website for midlife crisis, I saw tons and tons and tons of information supporting midlife crisis in marriage. When we went through, those resources were not there. When I found information regarding this website, it was a really good website. And when I found it, what they said was marriages, midlife crisis in marriages happens when people, usually men, women go through it too, but it looks a little different. But when men go through it, it's usually between the ages of maybe as young as 35 to 55. And 95% of marriages don't make it through midlife crisis. 95. I was blown away. How do you know if your spouse is going through midlife crisis? It was hitting every bullet point. Extremely selfish. Everything was about him. We used to talk about our days. We didn't talk about our days anymore. We used to, know what was going on with each other. We asked permission before we spent large amounts of money, things like that. And then all of a sudden, that wasn't happening. So here I am looking at this website, and I hear this thing saying 95% of marriages don't make it. And in that moment, I decided that our marriage would. I also heard Daddy say to me that we would come through it, and that I'd be able to use this as a testimony to other married couples. All these years I have been asking, what happens when you get to 20 plus years where marriages fall apart? Mind blown. Nobody talks about this. This is what I learned, that nobody talks about midlife crisis in African-American communities. In other communities, they had support groups and, all kinds of things at their churches. As I was doing research for my book, Most African Americans had no idea what midlife crisis was. They said things like, "Oh, he was crazy for a minute," or "He lost his stuff," or "She lost her mind," and but I was asking them what happened before they had an affair, before they had these other things that disrupted your marriage. What was happening? And did they change? Did you see them, looking for, what's the word? Like, did their group of friends change? I felt like my husband was on an unexcused extended hall pass, because nothing I said or did mattered at all. Can you imagine? It was extremely frustrating. It was hurtful. Not only that, but I didn't get compliments. My husband was always flirting with me. He'd always say, "Oh, I do you. Girl, you so fine. You look so good." None of that. None of that was the case while we were in the sunken place. It was one of the most painful, painfully frustrating, loneliest times I've ever experienced as a wife. I never felt so alone. I didn't even know people could feel this alone in marriage. But here I was with a husband and feeling completely and totally alone. Everything that he felt big and bad enough to do, he did it. Everything. Like, everything. And I kept looking at him and saying, "This is not the man I married. What happened to the man I married? Where is he?" And not only is he not the man I married, but he's doing everything that we coach couples not to do. Every class that we taught, every book that we went through, everything that we coached other people not to do, my husband was doing. I couldn't understand it. So I I decided in my mind, I made a decision that we would not be a part of the 95% that went down that ended up in divorce. Whew. I don't know what I was thinking. I know what I was thinking. I really did love my husband, but it was hard. It was so hard because, y'all, we didn't even make love. Like, wasn't interested. If we went out places, he would compliment all of my friends, and I would be standing there like, "I'm cute." Nope, no compliments for me. I cried a lot. I cried a lot during that time. And and there were some people in my life who just who helped me to get through that. I asked for counseling. No, no for counseling. What do you mean counseling? I am man, hear me roar. I don't do counseling. I'm a big guy. I don't do counseling. Our family is falling apart. One of the other things that I noticed too, that when we were in that space, my husband and I had just recently purchased this big, beautiful home, which we chose together. And we chose this home. And when we lived in an apartment, he would always fix stuff, do stuff to make our apartment what we needed it to be without going overboard. We had this huge house and things were like falling apart. And he wasn't fixing anything. Like, it was like, "Oh, well, I need to go party. I need to go hang out. I need to go be with my friends. I don't need to be here." This thing right here, the phone, oh my gosh, he lived in the phone all day, all night, in the phone. When we were with people, when we were by ourselves, he was just in the phone. I grew to hate the phone. Then I started wishing I was a phone. And then I was just like, I don't know what to do with this guy. So what did I do? Let me tell you what I did. There are some, you know how we have in Be Strong Families, we talk about protective factors. Lori, can you put those up for me? Because how did I survive this? I'll show you how. Be Strong Families has something called protective factors, right? Done by Strengthening Families. Well, probably about 2015 or so, I decided that I also there were some protective factors that I was going to use to help keep my marriage together, or help keep me in the marriage. So this was about 2015, so it was a while ago. However, it's still so today, I still use some of these very same things to strengthen my marriage. The first one being communication, because communication really does make the whole wide world go round. And it's more than just the words we use. It's effective communication combines a set of skills that includes not just talking, but nonverbal expressions, listening, being attentive, being fully present when someone is talking to you, understanding how to manage your stress in the moment, being able to share how you feel without, blowing up and acting crazy. It's also having the capacity to recognize and understand and manage your own emotions in the moment with the people that you're communicating with. And so it's the glue that connects us, that deepens our connections to one another is communication, and every marriage needs it. And then, of course, there's respect. So I don't know how many of you guys have heard this, but I learned this in my 100 years of marriage, right? Is that respect is the number one need for women is to be loved. But the number one need for a man in marriage is to be respected, right? When the love is not there or the respect is not there in a marriage, that foundation is a weakened foundation. Intimacy. This is intimacy, spiritual, emotional, or physical intimacy. It's really about being emotionally close to your partner and being able to let your guard down, letting him or he or she know how you really feel. It's also about being able to accept and sharing your partner's feelings, about being there when they want to let their defenses down. And when emotional intimacy is practiced with consistency, it takes the spiritual and the physical intimacy to a whole nother level. You see security on here. And some people would call this trust. But I call it security because, why did I choose? I chose security because all throughout my marriage, I needed to feel secure in my marriage. And I needed to be sure that my husband had my back. And he needs to be sure that I had his back. And it's more than just finances, right? It is, it's the steps we take to make our spouses feel number one in a relationship. It's prioritizing them above family. It's taking their advice. It's making them feel valued and needed despite their shortcomings. Is this concept of security. And I know if I can trust you, then I can feel secure in your love. But over the years, I've watched so many couples struggle to make sure their spouses feel like they're number one, to feel secure in their love, that no matter what they do, they're not going anyplace. If they hit a bump, if they hit a rough patch, I'm not leaving. I got you. So for me, security is a protective factor, and you could use it interchangeably with trust. But so many marriages fall apart when they don't feel secure in their marriage, right? When they're like, everybody has a say except me. Everybody can call on my spouse except me. My spouse will go the distance for everybody but me. Nobody wants it. That doesn't make for a firm foundation. That makes for a shaky foundation. So for me, security became a protective factor. And then relationships, we have to surround ourselves with healthy married couples. My husband talks about in the book that when we were a part of our married couples ministries and our Sunday school, and it was like us being surrounded by pillars, right? And the wind couldn't get to us. But then when we left that security and that safe place, we were wide open and the wind beat the crap out of us, right? We moved literally, physically, literally, we moved from the church. We were no longer in the ministry and we got beat down, right? So it takes relationships, those other people who are going to feed into you, love on you, encourage you. Those people are key to a marriage. I don't know how many times we had to call people from the married couples ministry or our friends and say, I'm about to bust his head. It's about to go down. Somebody better come get him. Or, and vice versa, right? Because it gets real in marriage. But those relationships are so important to a healthy marriage. I always say it takes a village to keep a marriage, right? A healthy village to build a healthy and a strong marriage. And then forgiveness. Dude, oh my gosh. Forgiveness is like, we know what it is to forgive, right? If you're married, you have to practice forgiveness 100 times more than anybody else. Because I remember my husband saying to me, I choose to forgive you. And I'm like, he's not an easy forgiver. He's a hard forgiver. Like he can hold on to stuff until Jesus gets back. And I remember him saying this to me. We were having a conversation and I said, but you forgive me. And he was like, that's because I choose to forgive you. If I didn't choose to forgive you, we couldn't be married. That was huge. And in those moments in the sunken place, I was thinking to myself, I'm choosing to forgive, and I'm going to forgive, not only choosing to forgive, I'm going to forgive quickly. Why? Because that's the way that Daddy God forgives me all the time. He forgives me quickly. So forgiveness is needed every day for someone, by someone. Our spouses need our forgiveness every day for our own emotional well-being. And it's a choice. A marriage cannot survive without a waterfall of forgiveness. A waterfall, not a drip, 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 but a waterfall. The same type of forgiveness that Daddy gives me, I have to give to my spouse. I have to, right? It's because I don't want to carry stuff. I don't want to hold stuff. I don't like tension and I don't want people to hold unforgiveness towards me. And so I try to adapt I try to give them what I want. And then lastly, faith. I don't know, you're with me on here and I don't know what your faith is. But for me, my faith was everything in this, during this time, right? So I think about it as a protective factor. It's what is your hope anchored to? Like, what is your marriage anchored to? What's your foundation? So when marriage was created, it was created with the intent that the creator of marriage would be a part of the marriage. The Bible talks about the foundation on which a house is built and how solid and secure the house is going to be. My marriage was built on a strong foundation. How did these show up in my marriage in this particular time? So for me, communication came by way of boundaries because we didn't talk a lot. We did not talk a lot. And when we did talk, we were not using nice words with each other. We were not using nice words with each other. But it came by way of boundaries. So I had to set some boundaries of like, this is unacceptable. You can't come in the house at 3:00 in the morning. That would be a no. You cannot spend all day gone from 5 a.m. in the morning and then come back here at midnight and go to sleep. That's not acceptable. I was going to say, I tried to Forgiveness was huge in the sunken place because I had to forgive him every day, as I'm sure he did for me. And we did stuff and said stuff to each other that we can't take back. We can't take back, but we choose to forgive each other. It's a choice. Because if we were going to stay married longer than, if we were going to get through this rough patch, if we were going to stay longer than, stay together longer than the time that we were currently together, we had to practice forgiveness. And so it happened all the time. It happened quickly. There were some times when it was harder for me to forgive. And in this whole thing, oh my gosh, you know what forgiveness looked like? Like, so many times I wanted to hold stuff against him. Even when I saw him healing, even when I saw Daddy removing these layers and my husband beginning to soften towards me again, oh my gosh, I realized that, I thought I had forgiven him. And then I realized that I wasn't, that it was something I don't know, I forgive him, then take it back and be like, no, I'm not going to forgive, because if I give it to him, he's going to think that he can use it against me. He's going to do an extended hall pass again. He's going to go off the rails again if I forgive him. And then I realized, like, no, where's my faith come in? I'm trusting. My trust is not in my husband. It never has been. I love my husband, but it's not in him. It is in Daddy God. It's in my faith that he'll keep me, that he'll provide, that he'll deliver, that he'll do all those things that I'm asking him to do. And so my trust is not in my spouse. It's in Daddy God for me. It's in my Creator. And so that's another reason why I didn't make trust a protector factor. But that was huge for me. And then the relationships, oh my gosh, guys, we taught married couples. And if you'd asked us at any time, like, should you talk to somebody who isn't married about your marriage? No, absolutely not. We'd be like, no, that's like number 568 in the rule book. Because, you don't want to talk to somebody who doesn't believe the same thing you believe. You want to talk to somebody who believes what you believe about marriage and is perfectly married, because they'll understand it takes a different mindset to be married. That's what I thought. And then during this time, I was led to understand that grace was so important in this moment. Grace and love overshone like all of these things. Why? Because Grace said that I need to pray for someone, for Jay to send me somebody to talk to. You may ask, why didn't you go to the church? Well, I didn't go to church because although I grew up in church and although I love church and I was active in church, I was a little worried about what people would say. I was worried about being judged by church folks. I didn't know what was going on with my husband. He didn't know what was going on with him. And I didn't want people judging us. So I didn't. I did, though, pray for who to talk to. And 3 people held me down during this sunken place. One of my really good friends, Marie, who's on with us today. Hey, Marie, I love you, girl. Held me down. She stopped me from walking out so many times with my bag packed, like, I'm out of here. I can't take this. This is too hard. This wasn't a part of what is it, sickness and health and whatever. I was like, I can't do this. And then my sister, Monique, and my sister is not married. She's single. But at that time, she lost her job. That sounds bad, right? But she lost her job. So she was able to just be available for me. And I needed that. And she prayed with me because Greg and I have been together since we were two. She prayed with me. She would encourage me. She would send me stuff. I would pour my heart out and she would just listen. And then she would say, let me pray for both of you. And not one time was she like, you know what, tell him to pack his stuff. She never did any of that. She just really just loved on me, and she loved on my husband through it, through our conversations and those relationships. And then the third one was Underdog, Marie's husband. These are my friends and my marriage mentors. And man, when I tell you, I would call him all the time, like, I don't understand what's going on with this guy, blah, 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 blah. And he would just listen. I call him Underdog. He calls me Polly, Polly, blah, 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 blah. He held me down. I could not have done it without those relationships. Those relationships were key. Man, this went on for, the other thing they said when I researched this midlife crisis was not only does 95% of marriages not make it, but it lasts for 7 to 10 years. I was like, what? I'm not doing this for 7 or 10 years. It had to be at least 7 years. My husband says that every time I talk about it, that I extend a year, but there was the moments, and then there was the reveal, and then there was the residue. So yeah, it did feel like it was like 7 to 10 years, but I could not have gone through those moments without those relationships, and without my faith, and without forgiveness, and without respect. No, I don't have stars by these other ones, because no, we did not have intimacy. It wasn't there. And I did not feel secure in this moment. I didn't feel secure in my husband, but I definitely felt secure in my relationship with Daddy, that he would fix, turn around, deliver whatever he needed to do to make us right again, to give us a testimony, to show other people that if we did it, then they could do it too. So Lori, you can go to the next one. You can just put the next slide. So we are at 30 years and going strong. Woo, woo, woo. We made it, not without blood and sweat and tears. This dude is my hero. And I'm going to tell you why he's my hero. He's my hero because he did what so many other guys can do. Did he go through a rough patch? Yes, he did. Everybody goes through everybody goes through a rough patch in marriage. This was in 20 and 30 years, we've been through 2 rough patches. The first one being him coming back from Iraq. That was rough. That was rough too. And then this one was like mind blowing. And he didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know what was going on. And sometimes he would say things to me, and then he would look like, I don't know why I said that. And we would have these talks where you could tell that he was in anguish. And he didn't, and I had to extend grace to him, because Daddy God has always extended grace toward me. And I had to be able to extend that grace toward my husband, because he needed it in that moment. I needed to be able to have his 6. I needed to be able to stand in the gap for him when he couldn't do it. But when he decided, he always says that he has a quote that he likes to use. It says, I can show you better than I can tell you. And when he decided that he was going to turn things around and save his marriage, he did it. He did it. He did it. He did it. So many men, so many spouses. We could have been in the 95%. But at some point, he decided that he also wanted to fight for this. Some people would say, oh, yeah, it takes 2. It didn't take 2 at the time. It only took 1 for a long time. It was 1. It was 1 holding down the other one. But when he made a decision to do it, man, he put everything into it. He put everything into it. And so today, when I look at my husband, I'm super excited and super grateful that God chose to give me a husband that could withstand the test of time, and that when the going got rough, he didn't get going. He decided to stay, and he decided to fight for his marriage. And those protective factors were a huge part of that. Of course, with grace, a lot of grace and a lot of love and a lot of forgiveness, but we did it. And you can do it too. I don't know who's out there who might be struggling with midlife crisis in marriage, when your spouse just goes off the rails and becomes somebody new that you don't recognize anymore. But we did it. And if we did it, so can you. I encourage you to use those, to recognize those, because we all have these protective factors. We all know how to communicate. We all know that we have relationships. It's about the relationships you choose. I could have linked up with some wives who was like, girl, bye, get rid of him. You can go do your own thing. I ain't want me here before. Could have done that. What kind of relationships are you surrounding yourself with? What kind of words are you saying to each other? Are you saying words that build up and don't tear down? What are you saying to your person, right? To that person. If we did it, you can do it too. So I am going to stop for a few minutes and see if anybody I'll take some questions. If anybody has questions. Hey, Val, I'm glad you made it. If anybody has questions, I am willing to answer any questions. Let's see. And if anybody wants to come on screen with me and ask a question, that's fine too. Or you can just put it in the chat. And let's see who's in the chat. Dana said, I'm curious if your husband can identify what was a turning point for him. What was it that made him decide to choose to fight for your marriage, if there was a definitive moment? Dana, I wish that I could. You know what? I'm going to tell you what I think. I don't think that he has shared it like that in that way. But in preparation of the book launch, we did a number of interviews, mostly me. And then my husband was still struggling with it when we first did the book, and the book launched in July 2021. And he said in one of the interviews, he said he realized that this wasn't about him. It was bigger than him. What he was going through and what we were going through, that it was bigger than him. And I'll also say this, I did beg for, several times for counseling, and he would say no. And then when the military, in order for you to get benefits, any military wives out there, in order for you to get benefits, they had to go through counseling. The best thing ever. I was so grateful. I was so grateful. And it's not something I pushed him to, but it was something that I just prayed about, because I asked, a couple of times, and after that I just prayed about it. And then he had to go through this process for his military benefits, and that caused him to go to counseling. And it wasn't marital counseling, but it was okay, because whatever he needed at that moment, he needed at that moment, during that time in that season. And I'm just grateful for it. I wish I could give you a better answer than that, Dana. But that's what he shared, that at some point he realized it was bigger than him, and it wasn't about him. Thank you for the question. It is amazing to see how God works in marriage. It was hard. Any other questions? How long does the residue last? Is it like PTSD and pops up on you when you're not expecting it? How do you deal with the residue? Oh, good question, Marie. Oh my gosh, let me tell you what residue looks like. Residue looks like, once we've decided that we're going to come back together. Laura, you can drop the screen. Residue looks like when we decide we're going to come back together, and then he leaves and he goes someplace and he doesn't tell me where he's going, then I'm like, where are you going? Immediately I'm getting activated or triggered. Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Or if I asked him something, we're talking, and then this is residue. We're talking, and then in the middle of talking, he just takes his phone and starts, that kind of stuff. Or, there was so much residue. But how long does it last? I don't know. I'm sure it's different in every marriage. I feel like we made 30 years in July. When we made our turning point was probably 2016 or 17. And we still every once in a while see a little residue. And it can pop up like PTSD. Guys, in the middle of this, in the middle of our sunken place journey, my husband's PTSD came back. I didn't even know that it could do that. That popped up. And I was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. How did I deal with the residue? A lot of prayer. And I put scripture. If you come to my house, if I could show you my house, it has like scripture somewhere everywhere, but I'm a big scripture person. Some people use affirmations. I had some of those too in my bedroom, on my mirror, and around my bathroom mirror, and wherever I worked, I had scripture so that when I felt myself being activated or triggered, then I would immediately just, go straight to that scripture. And I would get up in the morning and say to myself, I'm an overcomer. I'm more than a conqueror. Daddy God loves me. I got this, girl. You still fine. I really did have those messages around my mirror and around my house to remind me to stay focused on Daddy God and not on my husband, because staying focused on my husband or whatever, or staying in that moment of being mad at each other wouldn't have worked. And I just don't like that. I just don't like to, I don't like to stay mad at each other. And so that's what I do for me. And then I find that Daddy takes care of the rest. So I don't know. I hope that answered the question. What would you say is the biggest area of personal growth for you in this? For me, Dana, I think it would be biggest area of personal growth. I really think that it's grace, and it's built my confidence and my relationship with God and my faith. That's grown by leaps and bounds. If it wasn't huge before, it's huge now. Like nothing can shake that, because I've seen him do the miraculous. When you see him change somebody right before your eyes, and that person transforms from, being this crazy person to back being, calm, and whatever the case is, when you see that, it's huge. So I think the biggest area of personal growth for me was my relationship with Daddy, and learning how to be even more gracious. If I can deal with a lot today because I dealt with that more than I could before. And prior to this, I told you guys, we didn't really have any major stuff that hit our marriage. And so this was outside of, coming home from Iraq and testing my gangster. So I think that would be it. Like I've grown extremely gracious, even more gracious than I was before. And before this. Marie said, do you feel like trust can truly be regained? I believe it can be. I just think it takes time. I think it takes time. Slowly but surely, our trust is, I think right now we're in a good place, and trust has been regained, and it was hard. And I know other people have also gone through stuff in their marriages and are living their best married life ever. So yeah, I think trust can totally be regained. Greg and we're in a really great place. And so I would say, just from my own experience, I would say, yeah, it can be regained. Is it hard? Does it take some time? Yes. Does it take a little bit of me of each person recognizing where they are in the moment? We had to get to the place where we recognize, like, wait, I'm being triggered. This is triggering me. This is triggering me. So I don't like when you do this because it makes me feel like, and I really did have conversations just like that because I wasn't trying to have blowouts. So then I had to measure my words. Yeah. So thank you, Marie. Michelle, do you feel you start to recognize a change because you let go of the anger and it starts to let God move you to the place of contentment? Because I let go of the anger. I don't, I don't, I don't know, Michelle, if I recognize if I let go of the anger. I just felt like because I was trusting God that He did the work. Because there was some days that I was like really, really angry. I was angry at God. I was angry for us going through this situation. I'm like, we don't do this. This is not us. I was angry because I'm like, Daddy, you said that a good man's steps are ordered by the Lord. Why are my husband's like, you know, where his steps? Why his steps going the opposite way of a good man? Like, I don't understand this. And so there were some times that I was really angry. And I think that anger came and went. So I don't know that, I don't know if I'm answering the question right. Do you feel like you started to recognize a change? Yeah, I don't know. I just knew, I did know that in the moment I was always very present of God's presence and that He was working things out. I never lost sight of that. Even in my angry moments, I never lost sight of that. And I just think that the more that I meditated on His word, that's how He moved me to the place of contentment. Because I wasn't in contentment. I'm content now, Michelle. I wasn't content then. I was like, Daddy, when you gonna get me out of here? So please get me out of here. As much as I wanted to stay, I wanted to go because I just didn't want to hurt anymore, if that makes sense. Let's see. How did you deal with the emotions of having to relive the pain when you decided to write a book? Thanks, Lori. That's a good one. Woo, y'all. When I first wrote the book, so let me tell you how just faithful God is. When I was going through this, when we were going through this, I started getting Sashington at work. So much so that they coined the term Sashington, and it means to get your flight delayed or canceled on your way home. So after every business trip, on the way home, my flight would get delayed or canceled for some crazy reason. I got stranded one time because they didn't have weather observers. It was a beautiful sunny day, and they wouldn't let the plane leave because they didn't have a weather observer. But every time I got Sashington, I had these wonderful, wonderful experiences. I wrote the book in my phone. I had started a journal because a friend suggested that. When I went back and decided to put this book on paper and publish it, there were so many, I had rewritten the most painful moments over and over and over again in the book. And I had to go back and take those out. And for a while, I didn't want to read the book because I was getting very, sometimes I would cry. I didn't want to refill those moments, but I needed to because I felt like if I write this book, then I can encourage some other couples. I can encourage another couple not to give up, to trust Daddy God and to watch Him just move in their situations because He loves us. And so, yeah, I dealt with it. I just dealt with it. I sat in the moment, Lori. So I cried through it. Sometimes I toss the book to the side, like I don't want to see this book anymore. I had to take a break because I started looking at my husband crazy, like, ooh. So yeah, that's how I dealt with that. Thank you, Lori. It's a good question. How did you navigate setting boundaries when there were not any previously? Did you find you needed to adjust those still? Yes, Nana. I we had boundaries, and then he was like blowing the boundaries. So I had to bring him back to the boundaries. Like, no, it's not okay for you to go out and to run and help some female that I don't know at 9 o'clock in the night. I don't care what she say her grandma doing, you're not going. or no, it's not okay for you to come in the house at 2 o'clock in the morning, or, after 2 o'clock or whatever the case is. So I just simply, sometimes if I was too upset, I would write them down and send it to him via text. Or if we were in a good space, because we had some good moments back and through. It wasn't all hell. It just felt like it. So there were some moments that we had, like little moments, and in those moments I would share my heart. And I did sometimes need to adjust those. So, when he didn't come home, like when I think one of the moments when he says like he wasn't checking text or he wasn't answering my text, that's unacceptable. You want me to answer your text, so you need to answer my text. So it was really about communicating my needs and my expectations so that he knew, and then giving him an opportunity to share with me if there were any communication, any needs that he had that I wasn't meeting, or that, that he felt like he needed, communicating his needs to me. So yeah. And I adjusted them as I needed to. Marie said, what advice do you give wives in general? I would say, if I could give advice to wives, I would say get a firm foundation. I don't know what your belief is. Whatever your belief system is, make it, if that's your firm foundation. If you don't have one, you should get one. My firm foundation is Christianity. That's my firm foundation. And when you have something to anchor your hope to, it goes a long way than when you do not have something to anchor your hope to, if that makes sense. If I'm anchored, that means I'm not moving. I may sway a little bit, I may bounce up and down, but I'm still going to stay in the same place. And for me, my hope was anchored in my faith, and that kept me, so that I didn't float, I didn't break away and float off. I stayed where I was supposed to be. And my husband and my family were all better for it today because I was able to do that. And it wasn't my own strength, but it was his strength. So I'm going to say that because that's a difficult place to be. Michelle said it does. I was thinking more of content and the fact that I've stood before God at your throne with this man to say I'm in it. I know that my Father will guide the ship and help me ride through it. That's what I meant. Yep, exactly. Yeah. I would say, Najina, ours was too. Ours was too. Ours was too. You were not alone. Ours was too. Our sex life was also in the trash. And how can you be intimate with somebody who doesn't like you and who doesn't have anything nice to say to you and who doesn't want to touch you? If we had sex, then it would turn into, like immediately away from, right? So I would, if counseling is not an option, what does your faith say? What does your faith advise you to do? You are so welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us. Lori, can you just put the other screen up right quick? It's 1 o'clock. Let me just say goodbye and let me just share where you can get the book, because I can't let you leave without sharing where you can get the book. The book is available on Amazon. If you take your camera and point it to one of the QR codes, it'll take you right there. Buy the book. If you love the book, leave a review. If you'd like to stay in contact and all the things, I do a number of things for the community and for wives. I have a new initiative that'll be launching in February. If you would like to get on the mailing list, I'm going to put my email in the chat, and I would love to stay connected with you. So that's my email. Or you can leave me a message at SaritaSashington.com. Thank you so much for being here, guys. We like to leave every webinar with a positive something. We don't like to leave on a negative note. We always like to leave on something positive. So I'm going to say amplify overcoming. That's my word. Think about something from today's conversation. Think about what you'll amplify moving forward. Hashtag amplify what? What will you amplify from this conversation? Please drop your amplifies in the chat. We love to hear them, and we use them later on for different things. Also, I just want to say that thank you. If I can't say it again, thank you so much, everybody who came to join us today. Lori, next screen. Don't forget to visit Be Strong Families, where you can take advantage of all the wonderful products we have there. We have so many great things there. So don't forget to visit the shop, use the QR code there, and it'll take you right to our cafe gift shop. Next, Lori. And then join our YouTube community. This slide or this webinar can be found on our YouTube channel. Please go there to subscribe, like all that stuff. If you are, I should have put there, I do workshops and speaking events for marriage and anything to encourage wives and marriages. And so if you're interested and you need a speaker, look me up. Please contact me. I'd love to do that. Next slide. Don't forget to join us for our Taste of Cafes are happening. They're no longer doing every Friday. They're doing like every other Friday. You know, it's led by our National Parent Cafe Leadership Team. It's going to be epic. Oh my gosh, the cafes, there's like waiting lists for the cafes. So please sign up, come to a cafe. It's amazing. Use the QR code and it'll take you right there to register. Next, Lori. And so don't forget, oh, Monique is here. Yay. Thank you, Nikki. She said, what encouragement would you give to wives and married couples going through now? Oh, I hope I said it. I hope I answered it. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Don't forget, if you want to come back and sign up now for different webinars, you can use the QR code and it'll take you to our page where you can register for upcoming webinars. Thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed this today. Yay. Thank you for allowing me to be transparent and be myself and be open with you guys. And I hope it helps somebody. Enjoy the rest of your day.